Hello there. I am so excited to be speaking with you today. And I'm going to be talking to you about two of my favorite topics and how they're connected, which are resilience and well-being. And I believe that after the past couple of years, I'm not sure that we can talk about, our well-being without a side of resilience. So let me kick things off by telling you about my personal resilience story. And, that's how I've learned much of what I'm going to give to you today. And it comes in three different sections. And the first section starts off on a typical Saturday morning where my little one at the time, who was 1.5, he's now 9. I can't believe that our resilience journey has been going on for maybe a decade almost. But he was 1.5 and sitting at the breakfast table and popped on down and came over to me and said, "Mama, up." And unbeknownst to me, our lives were about to change in that instance, because when I picked him up, he proceeded to seize in my arms. And that started what I like to call our first leg of our resilience marathon, because not only was he dealing with seizures and neurological issues, he was aspirating thin liquids into his lungs. He had GI issues. Later on, we dealt with sensory issues and ADHD and lots of other things. And as a parent, having to go through that and watch that and have to kind of maintain your sense of balance by, alongside, don't forget, a full-time job and keeping myself afloat, my son afloat, my family afloat. And then, oh, by the way, leg 2 of this marathon happened, which was the birth of my second son. Because the day after he was born, the doctor came into our room and rattled off a laundry list of issues that were wrong with his heart. And I remember looking at my husband and just saying, I don't know if my heart can do this again. We had actually just gotten our first son somewhat stable, and here we were again. Because not only did he have heart issues, but he had a compromised immune system. He had swallowing and breathing issues where he would go through blue spells. He also had ADHD. He had just thing after thing after thing. For such a little person, he was dealt so much. So our family was now in leg 2 with competing doctors, competing medical priorities, and me as the mom with not a whole lot of coping mechanisms to guide me toward well-being. All I knew was push harder, do more, be more, in order to have it all, be it all, do it all, and accomplish it all. So that's what I did. And I kept pushing and I kept pushing until the day I received a phone call that started the third part of my resilience journey. And that phone call was to inform me that I no longer had a job. And for some reason, I could power through being the main phrase there, all of these things with my children, but I could not deal with losing my job and my sense of identity that was wrapped up in it. So on that day, I crumbled. And I had to acknowledge that in order to be resilient in that moment, I had to allow the crumble to happen. I had to allow it so that I could build it back up, so that I could then choose and make a conscious choice how I wanted my family's well-being to be, how I wanted my own life to look like. And that's when I entered into entrepreneurship and why you have me speaking to you right now. And what I've learned throughout all 3 of those legs, and let me tell you, there's been quite a few more legs that we do not have time to speak about during this talk. But the top things that I've learned is, again, that resilience is a muscle. There's a wonderful quote by Sheryl Sandberg, and you can feel free to Google it, but it speaks about just that. And it speaks about how, you're not born with a fixed amount of resilience, and that you can build it up over time. And the more you go through, the more your collective tool belt is filled and you become the better version of yourself. And your well-being becomes better with that too. Because once you give yourself permission to crumble and you give yourself permission to feel all the feelings that are thrown at you, you can then start to truly understand what well-being feels like. Because for me, I'm constantly reminding myself and clients and lots of people around me that you need to pay equal respect. In order to truly have a stable well-being, you need to pay equal respect to the positive and the negative things that come into your life. And the quicker that you understand that the negative route is always going to come and that we do not live in a fairy tale as we were maybe promised growing up, the better that you know that you are able to weather the storm. And when you find yourself up against adversity, or when your well-being has been kind of shaken up, I always tell my clients to stop. There's the quote that says, when you're going through hell, keep going. And there is some truth in that, but there also is some equal truth in stopping and blocking out the noise and getting quiet enough and centered enough to hear yourself think, to hear yourself long enough to know this is my next right step. And to also understand that your well-being is in jeopardy and that you have to actively wake up and choose it every single day, or it will be chosen for you. And that's not how I recommend you go through life. So again, give that equal weight to both. Remember, it's a muscle. And remember that you are filling your collective toolbox, as painful as that may be. And when all else fails, get quiet. Get quiet, meditate, however you may do that, to be able to hear what is truly in your heart. Thank you so much for having me with you today. I wish you well on your journey forward.